Alright, welcome to the Strange North channel. In this video, I'm going to tell you about the disappearance of 24-year-old Marilyn Bergeron from Quebec City in 2008. And this disappearance always stuck with me, largely because of what happened to Marilyn shortly before she disappeared. And I have a hard time pronouncing some French names, so I just want to apologize in advance in case I butcher one of the names in this video. And I'm just going to jump right into the story. So Marilyn Bergeron was born on December 21st of 1983 in Chicoutimi, Quebec, which is the most populous borough of the city of Saguenay. Marilyn had an early interest in music and started taking lessons at age 10. She then moved with her family to Quebec City in 1998. She attended Roger Comtois High School, where her mother recalled her always trying to get a band together. Marilyn later transferred to Neuchâtel High School, and she expanded her musical interests and became involved in many other extracurricular activities. And apparently she was quite social, but her parents said that she could be quite reckless, and they claimed that many of her friends were bad influences. She was said to have had a very open personality, and she was greatly interested in different cultures. She spoke English and French equally well, and she even spoke a little Spanish and Russian. Marilyn earned a degree in media arts and technology at Cégep des Jonquières, and she later took classes at the Joliet campus of the Cégep Régional des Lanaudière. She eventually moved by herself to Montreal in 2005, where she worked as a sales assistant at Steve's Music Store and did freelance sound editing work for local TV stations. She was also training in finance at Industrial Alliance, which is a Canadian insurance and wealth management group headquartered in Quebec. Marilyn had expressed hopes of becoming a flight attendant and moving to Western Canada in the near future. Marilyn began telling her family that she wanted to return home to Quebec City and that she no longer felt safe in Montreal. She was very vague at first, and she didn't tell anyone exactly why she felt unsafe, but she told her mother that she would tell her what happened to her when she came back home. On February 10th of 2008, Marilyn quickly vacated her apartment on Hochelaga Street in the Hochelaga Maisonneuve neighborhood, and she traveled straight to her parents' house. Over the next 6 days, she would make 2 more trips to Montreal to gather the rest of her belongings from her apartment, and then she settled at her parents' house in Quebec City. During this week of returning to her parents' house and going back and forth between Quebec City and Montreal, her family said it was obvious that Marilyn was deeply troubled, but she still didn't say exactly what happened to her, only that she did not want to return to Montreal again. Marilyn's family was obviously very concerned about her, and when they tried to get her to talk, she would often just start crying and not say anything specifically. But Marilyn specifically denied that her problems involved drugs, debts, or a relationship. When Marilyn was asked if she had been assaulted, she would just start crying and shut down, and she just wouldn't tell people what exactly happened to her. The day after she had moved all her stuff into her parents' place, the morning of February 17th of 2008, she told her parents that she was going out for a walk. She had her credit card with her, but no form of identification. Shortly after 11 a.m., she was recorded at an ATM at the Caisse Populaire in Loretteville, a suburb of Quebec City. Her attempt to withdraw $60 in cash was denied, and security footage at the bank showed Marilyn repeatedly looking behind her several times nervously when she was at the ATM. At 4:03 p.m. that day, she bought a cup of coffee with her credit card at a Café Depot coffee shop in St. Romuald, about 25 kilometers south of her parents' house on the other side of the St. Lawrence River. The clerk at this coffee shop confirmed that Marilyn had been in the store, and they said that Marilyn seemed depressed and anxious to leave the store. This was the last time Marilyn was seen, and her credit card was not used at all after that point. So Marilyn's parents reported her missing when she did not return home that evening. Quebec City police were quickly able to track her banking records to the ATM and coffee shop, and they quickly started searching the city and putting up flyers with Marilyn's picture. There was a $10,000 reward offered, and local media covered this case extensively. Initially, Quebec City police did not show Marilyn's parents the footage of their daughter at the ATM at the bank, as they considered it too upsetting to show them. They eventually did see the video, and they agreed that Marilyn appeared to be quite helpless, and even this short video of Marilyn taken at the bank gave everyone a bad feeling. Although Quebec City was searched extensively, and Marilyn's family and the police contacted her friends in different cities, no trace of Marilyn was ever found, and her credit card wasn't ever used again after that coffee shop. In January of 2010, well-known crime journalist Claude Poirier was contacted by a man who claimed to have seen Marilyn in Hawkesbury, Ontario. Hawkesbury is a predominantly francophone community across the Ottawa River from Quebec. This man claimed to have seen her around Hawkesbury for a year prior to calling in. He said it appeared that Marilyn had settled in that city with a younger man and that they moved around the town multiple times. Regular customers at a downtown Hawkesbury restaurant also claimed that they had seen Marilyn in there with a man after they were shown her photo. During the 2010s, Marilyn's family made several formal requests to the Ministry of Public Security to have Marilyn's case transferred to either the Sûreté de Québec, otherwise known as the SQ, or the Montreal Police. They said they believed the Quebec City Police had, quote, done their best, but they were frustrated that the police were investigating the case as a disappearance, possibly a suicide, without considering the possibility of criminal involvement. Marilyn's parents also wanted to expand the scope of the investigation. The SQ had a province-wide jurisdiction and a reputation as Quebec's most capable law enforcement agency, and of course the Montreal Police could investigate in that city. Marilyn had lived in Montreal for years, and she still had friends and acquaintances there that could potentially help in resolving this case. These requests by the Bergerons to have Marilyn's case transferred were regularly rejected. In 2015, Marilyn's parents even directly appealed to then Minister Lise Thériault for assistance in transferring this case. The Bergerons would eventually retain former Provincial Justice Minister Marc Bellemare as their personal lawyer. At a February 2017 news conference, the Bergerons, along with Mr. Bellemare, would express their disappointment that their request to transfer the case, or even to allow them to look at Marilyn's file, had been refused. The Quebec City Police and the SQ would quickly respond in the media. They claimed that the SQ had offered full cooperation and support to the Quebec City Police. The Quebec Police also confirmed that they did see this case as a disappearance, but they were taking it very seriously. At the same news conference, the Bergerons announced that the reward had increased to $30,000, and their lawyer Marc Bellemare announced that he was setting up a tip line for people with information that did not want to contact police directly. At a second press conference in November of 2017, the Bergerons announced that the tip line that had been set up by their lawyer had brought in 43 reports of sightings. This included contact with a man who had spent time with Marilyn during her last months in Montreal, shortly before she had moved back with her parents in Quebec City. This man was Jonathan Gauthier, and he had been friends with Marilyn in college and reconnected with her in 2007. On December 10th of 2017, Mr. Gauthier told the media that back in 2007, he had gone to meet Marilyn to go to a party with her. When he got to her apartment, he said he was quickly struck by Marilyn's demeanor. She was previously happy and upbeat, but she was quite sullen and depressed when he met up with her. He said that her mood lifted when they eventually arrived at the party they were going to, but after Marilyn talked with a friend of hers, she became very anxious, as if that conversation had triggered a bad memory. When Jonathan and Marilyn eventually got back to her apartment, she began crying non-stop. Jonathan asked her if anything bad had happened to her, if she had been sexually assaulted or witnessed a murder or something like this. Marilyn denied both of those things, but she said to Jonathan that something much worse had happened. She didn't get specific, but said, quote, "You can't even begin to imagine what I've been through," end quote. Jonathan would later claim that he got the impression that Marilyn did not want to put him in danger. And so this was an interesting development. Apparently Marilyn had told a friend shortly before her disappearance that while she was in Montreal, something worse than sexual assault or witnessing a murder had happened to her. And this was so distressing that she didn't want to be in Montreal anymore and moved back with her parents in Quebec City. And then a few years after this revelation, in 2022, there was another news conference in Hawkesbury, Ontario, where lawyer Marc Bellemare said there was another possible sighting in that city. A resident in Hawkesbury told Quebec police that on a cold and rainy night in December of 2009, he and his wife woke up to someone knocking on their door at 2 a.m. They opened the door to find a young woman outside wearing a light jacket, t-shirt, jeans, and high heels, and it was quite cold and raining out. This young woman was crying and very distraught, and she asked to use this couple's phone. The couple gave her a towel to dry herself off and let her use their phone. She made a quick call, but it didn't appear that she got an answer. The young woman then asked the couple for directions to a nearby street, and she declined their offer to give her a ride in their car, saying it was close enough to walk and she'd be fine. The young woman then apologized for disturbing the couple and then left. 3 months later, this couple saw a news report about Marilyn's disappearance, and they recognized her as the young woman who had come to their house that night. Although the young woman had been blonde rather than brunette, as Marilyn was in her picture, but Marilyn's family said that she sometimes dyed her hair blonde, and this was not out of character. This encounter had actually been reported by this couple to Quebec police in 2010, but it was not made public until 2022. There have been other reported sightings of Marilyn, especially in Ontario, close to the Quebec border, but to this day she has never been officially located and she remains a missing person. And that pretty much wraps up the story. To this day, Marilyn is still missing, and I can only imagine how hard that must be on her family, and my heart really goes out to them. Obviously, this could be a case of someone running away and disappearing voluntarily, but Marilyn also went through something very distressing in Montreal prior to her disappearance from Quebec City. And although she never told anyone exactly what happened to her, this definitely adds a bit of mystery to the story. But there have been sightings of Marilyn and indications that she's still alive. And so it seems that there's at least a glimmer of hope that this story could have a happy ending. I hope you found this interesting and informative, and if you'd like to watch more of my videos in general, please consider subscribing to my channel. I upload at least one new video per week. Thank you for watching. I hope you have a great day, and I look forward to seeing you next time on the Strange North channel.